Now let's look at clip loops. So we can loop a clip. So let's find a clip. I don't want to loop this entire song. So let's go in, maybe let's look at the drums. Let's find a place to loop. Okay, let's look at that section there. We can maybe even adjust it a little bit. Maybe I was a little off. Oops, I just lost my, using my trackpad, I lost my selection. Let's try this again. I'm just hitting the down arrow to go to my endpoint. All right, there's our one bar there. We can just adjust this by holding on the shift key, arrow over to the next transient. Okay. Or we could have done tab to transients or whatever. Let's put this on loop mode. Yeah, we could go 2 bars. Let's go 2 bars. That's a little bit more interesting. Let's separate that. Command E or Control E on Windows. Okay, so I have a clip. We can just go ahead and let's just delete this so we can really see this in context. Okay, so if I have a clip, I can go to my clip menu. I can probably even right click on this and say loop. And it'll come up with this loop dialog box. So I have 3 options here on clip looping. Do I want to specify the number of loops? Sure, let's just say I want 3 more. We'll do this like a 2, 4, 6, 8, an 8-bar phrase, right? Or do I want to say, do I want to go a certain length? Or maybe I just want to loop until the end of the session or the next clip. So any one of those 3, then we could say, do I want to enable a crossfade or not? And what kind of crossfade, maybe how long the crossfade. That's probably a good idea. Let's say, we'll go back to our number of loops, enable the crossfade, say OK. So now I have a looped clip here. And you notice the little icons showing the clip loop iterations there. It does say tip, even though clip loops are more frequently used in music production, you can also use them in post-production if you're doing film work. Maybe you want to loop ambient background audio or room tone. Great. Looping cannot be applied to multiple clips in a track. So if let's just undo this. I had, let's say I had a couple of clips here and I want to do that. I want to say Command Option L, which is, it doesn't do what you think it should do. So what you could do is do a group that, and then now you can loop that. And that does do what you expect it to do. Okay, so there's some workarounds there. Clips on multiple tracks can be looped simultaneously. So if I had, let's say, another clip down here, and I selected both of those, and then I do my same shortcut there. But the problem is they don't quite work with the way you expect them to, right? Each one of these looped on its own, but it doesn't keep that same shape. But again, you could group this, Option Command G, that's what I thought it was, and then loop it. And that would do what you expect it to do. So there's those caveats. So let's go back to that, loop this. All right. So you notice that we have the icons at the bottom showing each one of the iterations. We can edit this clip, and notice that this kind of acts like a clip group. Notice that, right? When I double click on it, it acts like a clip in its own. It doesn't act like 7, or what did I have? Yeah, 7 different clip iterations there. So that means I can, I can do long fade ins. That's impossible to do unless you have a clip group, right? So we can do that. We can use the edit tools. Let's say we're using the grabber tool. I can, of course, grab the clip as a whole, but if I have the grabber tool near one of the loop iteration icons, then I can grab any one of those loops, and let's say I didn't want it there. I can edit that in those individual iterations by just making sure that my grabber tool changes its functionality there and just looks at the loop. I can make sure I'm covering everything in the book here. I can use the selector tool, of course. I can select individual time, right? If I'm on the top half of the clip or anywhere that the selector tool looks like its normal selector tool, right? We can do those selections. But again, if I'm over, or even if there's a selection there, if I'm over a individual loop, then I can select the iterations. And then you could either delete it or whatever you need to do to that. Trim tool. The trim tool acts like this is a clip group, right? So I can trim the beginning and trim the end, right? Just like a normal trim tool function. But again, if I go over the icon, then it looks like the normal trim tool, but now I'm trimming the individual loops. And let's say I wanted, more of these in the same amount of time, and I can increase or decrease the original loop, and of course that's going to either have more loops or less loops. Of course, this is all going to sound weird now, but right, because now I don't have my perfect loop, but that's doing the original iterations there. Oops, there we go. Okay, what else do we need to cover? Okay, we can unloop and then reloop. So if I go again to the clip menu, I can say I want to unloop this. And it's going to give me this dialog box that says, well, I have some options. I can cancel and not do it. I can flatten, which means that I would that series of clips will now be just like the original. So let's just do that. So now I can flatten that. So now I have just normal clips, right, that are not loops, that are just clipped. It's like if I repeated that clip, that would be the same thing instead of doing a loop. I can also, let's undo that, do the same thing here, clip, unloop, and then remove would remove the loops and then going back to the original clip. So we could do that. So we're back to the original. So if I did that, I could duplicate. That's the same thing as like flattening a loop, or the repeat. What is it? Command. Oh, I forget the shortcut. Forget the shortcut to do repeats. Repeat. Option R. Option R. So if we had that. So that'd be the same kind of thing as flattening your loops. And then, of course, we already looked at it, but, looping a clip is, the book calls certainly a powerful tool in its own right, but you can also loop a clip group. So any of your clip groups you can also loop as well. And that's a good introduction to clip looping.